On the morning of July 21st, 1861, Union and Confederate forces converge just outside the small town of Manassas Junction, Virginia, near Bull Run Creek, just 20 miles outside Washington, D.C., to set up the first major battle of the Civil War. Thousands of civilians had traveled from Washington, D.C. to picnic on the grounds of the battlefield. They expected to watch the Union forces rout the inexperienced rebel army. Initially, this appeared to be the case. When the battle began, Union forces engaged Confederate forces at Matthews Hill. The Confederate lines faltered, and the rebels were driven back to a defensive position on Henry Hill. In the afternoon, Confederate reinforcements under the command of General Thomas Jackson arrived via railroad and bolstered the rebel defenses on Henry Hill. When Union forces advanced and assaulted Henry Hill, the rebel reinforcements smashed the Union flank and forced them into a full retreat. Outnumbered and without reinforcements, the Yankees fled for their lives and were routed off the battlefield. Civilians ran in terror, leaving their picnic blankets and wagons behind, as Confederate forces achieved a complete victory. In all, over 60,000 men fought in the Battle of Bull Run. Union forces, under the command of General Irvin McDowell, suffered over 2,900 casualties, including over 400 killed, over 1,100 wounded, and over 1,300 missing or captured. Confederate forces, under the command of General Pierre Beauregard, suffered over 1,900 casualties, including nearly 400 killed, over 1,500 wounded, and 13 missing or captured. So why did this battle matter? Confederate General Thomas Jackson became a hero in the Confederate Army. Jackson arrived later in the day with reinforcements and bolstered the Confederate defenses on Henry Hill. Under heavy Union assault, Jackson sat straight up in his horse, unaffected by the bullets and gunfire around him. A rebel officer pointed to Jackson and yelled to his frightened troops that Jackson stood like a stone wall. The Confederates rallied and routed the Union forces. Jackson became known as Stonewall Jackson and would go on to be a successful general and an icon in the South throughout the war. The defeat at Bull Run galvanized the North behind the Union cause and swelled the number of troops in the Union Army. President Lincoln acted immediately, issuing a call for additional volunteers and signing legislation that requested 1 million more soldiers to serve for 3 years. Within days, Northern men flooded recruiting offices to answer the call to service. In addition, Lincoln appointed General George McClellan as new head of the Union Army, which was now named the Army of the Potomac. This change of command would have huge ramifications in the years to come. The battle also ended any notion of a quick and easy victory for either side in the war. Both sides went into the battle with expectations of a quick end to the war. The fighting in the Battle of Bull Run, also known as the Battle of Manassas, was hard and fierce, and casualties were considerable, despite neither side really gaining significant ground. After the battle, the Union and the Confederacy realized that their expectations for a short war were unrealistic. The war would be longer and tougher than anyone could have imagined.